Dork Boy is the story about a 17-year-old kid who dies and wakes up in the afterlife and needs to figure out what happened and how to get in touch with his grandfather. So the first thing that happens to Dork Boy is that he doesn't recognize where he is before he's greeted by a grand spirit who's kind of like a tutorial giver in a video game, which I call the Wizard. So Dork Boy totally freaks out and says like, I'm 17 years old, I don't belong here, I shouldn't be dead. The Wizard just goes right ahead with the tutorial and doesn't really give all that much thought to Dork Boy's reaction to everything. So everything is very new to Dork Boy in the first episode, and the first episode pretty much just serves as an explanation of what's going on and how things work. And everything picks up from there. So at the end of episode 1, the Wizard explains to Dork Boy why he is in the in-between. And the reason why he's in the in-between is because he has unfinished business. He never actually lived his life. He was afraid of bullies and just ran away to his video games all the time. So this results in Dork Boy's first mission, essentially, which is to take revenge on one of these bullies, who's called Marcus. So in episode 2, he goes after Marcus and he haunts Marcus and takes revenge on him, but not realizing that this isn't really something that's all that effective, but we don't get to learn that just yet. So Dork Boy's biggest sin is just avoiding life. He didn't really do anything bad when he was alive, but essentially that's like the greatest sin of all, not living. I guess I wanted to explore that premise because every now and then we all feel like we're not really living up to our potential. We all feel like we're not really doing the stuff we could have done, you know what I mean? And that's what Dork Boy really is about, connecting with that human feeling. I guess we all feel like that sometimes. I've felt this way many times myself throughout my life, and I've had periods of my life where I escape into video games, and when I look back at it, I feel like I didn't really live those years. Like I had this period of my life when me and my ex-wife were living together and had moved into our own place where I just used every single opportunity I had to just escape into my games, especially during COVID. And she was really lonely at many of those times, but I mean, she was cool about it, but I knew that it wasn't okay, you know what I mean? And you kind of used it like a drug, those video games. And it was just like, I mean, almost like being a drug addict. You had to have more and more and more, and buying new video games all the time and just playing them for 5 minutes at a time. And I guess if I was to die and wake up in the in-between at that point in time, I would have been granted with that same treatment. So Dork Boy is not me. That's the power of fictionalism, essentially, where you can make a character who takes some of you and some of someone else and some of something you think is interesting, and you can just mash it all together into this one story. And that is essentially what Dork Boy is. So Dork Boy, the character, has a little bit of me, but it has also a little bit of buddies of mine that I've grew up with, which I feel like were bullied a lot. I personally haven't really been bullied all but that much at school as many other people have, but I have friends who have been really like tormented by bullies, and that has inspired me a little bit with how I went about telling Dork Boy's story as well. The most important thing when writing the story of Dork Boy is, in my head, the idea of an afterlife itself. Because I've been really caught up in the whole idea of there being an afterlife. I've always thought that there has to be more than just this. I'm kind of a spiritual person, but at the same time, I'm a science teacher who is very pragmatic in many ways and kind of think that what we see is what we get, sadly. So I wish there is an afterlife, essentially, so that everyone gets a second chance, because life is short. And we make mistakes, and we're not guaranteed the ability to make up for those mistakes. But if there is an afterlife, I mean, what an adventure that might be. Yeah, I guess the whole concept of Dork Boy's afterlife is very pragmatic, dressed in spiritual clothing. I mean, the concept of soul points and having to take your time and doing things properly there as well as here on Earth in a realm where essentially time doesn't exist. It's kind of, I mean, funny in a way, but I guess if all of this is eternal, if we never really die, which I am open to the idea of that, to be honest, then essentially the rules that apply to life kind of has to apply to everything, is my theory. I guess. So if you have to take your time here and do things properly, I guess that extends beyond this realm. Yeah, I mean, Dork Boy is a teenage boy. He's only 17 years old, so he just wants to fix things immediately. He doesn't think of consequences, and when he's told about the consequences, he thinks like that's not really a big deal, right? And those same ways of acting that put him there in the first place, in the graveyard, the quick fixes, that's essentially the stuff that keeps on killing him even after he's dead. So it's more or less a universal rule that you can't just take shortcuts and be evil and get where you want to go by cheating and lying. You have to put in the proper work and effort to do a good job, and also not only that, but be compassionate and loving towards both the living and the dead, essentially. That's kind of the concept of Dork Boy. Yeah, it is like the true essence of running out of time, because he is out of time. He is dead, but he gets this one last chance to kind of make up for a couple of things before he properly moves on. And I guess that part will always be a mystery in the story, what that actual moving on looks like. But his first and most important goal as it stands right now is that he feels so bad about his grandfather, who he grew up with, who's going to learn about his passing. So he does everything he can just to get a message across to his grandfather. So it's not so heavy. So even though Dork Boy is a character who first falls for the temptation of doing something evil to grant him more time in the afterlife, it is for a good cause, though. It is because of his sense of empathy and how much he cares for his grandfather. He wants to soften the blow, essentially. Yeah, and it's like he kinda cares about taking revenge on these bullies, but that's not really a driving force for him. Because for him, it's all about how can I get enough time to get my message across to my grandfather. And if that is one of the things he could do to kind of cheat himself to that space, that's what he wants to do. But he kind of just found a way to navigate these bullies and everything while he was alive, so he didn't really have to deal with the feelings of any of that stuff. He just jumped into his video games, right? So for him, he can see that it is unfinished business and a thing he could do to get soul points, but that's pretty much all it is to him. He doesn't really care. Yeah, and I guess I kind of can relate to that impatience. And it's kind of like the way I've always played video games as well. Like you change to easy mode, or you, I don't know, find a cheat code or whatever to get along and get ahead in the video games. And especially at the time that I grew up in the early 2000s, games were really criticized for being way too easy. And then there happened like this shift with the Dark Souls games and all of that stuff, where games were supposed to be hard all of a sudden, right? And you weren't supposed to actually beat all your games anymore. So, and I've also delved into those games, but I'm still kind of that guy who just wants to get it over with and get it done. And I'm the kind of guy who does whatever is necessary to get me where I want to go. And I guess sometimes that's okay, but sometimes it's not. Well, I do relate to this side of Dork Boy, and it's kind of like the premise of the whole series as well as how I've approached making the series, right? So I've had these probably like 3 years now where I've tried to figure out how can I make my own movies. And chances have it that this whole AI boom happened at the same time. So of course AI video has been on the table for a couple of years now, but it looked so fucking bad a couple of years ago that I couldn't even dream of doing it. But it came to a point where it's good enough. And now I know that the first couple of episodes suffer from it because I'm kind of figuring out stuff as I go along. And it's kind of like Dork Boy, you know, the Dork Boy always wants to find a shortcut. And I've pretty much done the same thing. And the same way that people hate me for doing that, because I know people hate AI slop. It's like at the same time we see Dork Boy progressing and becoming better at the game of the afterlife, while the quality of the videos are going up at the same time. Hopefully, I don't know. So essentially the shortcut of this video series from the perspective of me making them is releasing them as short form content, but it's also long form because it all will connect into a big story at the end. That's what I'm thinking. So every episode is tied together, and I will put everything together into an actual short film. And I kind of wanted to not be a short film. I wanted to extend beyond half an hour and preferably much farther beyond that. And I don't know if that is really all that normal individuals who do not have the backing of a team make like fictional videos of that length and put them out at that level of consistency, like every single week putting out something related to that. At least I haven't seen it before. And I think that is going to become much more normal in the future, given these tools that we have access to. But yeah, maybe I'm one of the first people who's doing this. And that's really exciting, being a part of that. But still, I mean, it's hard knowing that there's so many haters at the same time. You don't want people to not like you when you're putting out something that you've put a lot of energy into. Like, people don't recognize when they talk about AI slop, for example. They don't recognize that this shit actually takes a lot of time. Even if I can just click a button called generate, I still have to design characters, write scripts, make music, everything. And it's not like you just click generate and then you're done. You also have to take the best things you've generated and you have to cut away the bad stuff. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into this shit. And then meeting people who just treat it as crap is really, yeah, what do you even call that? It really is a big bummer, and it's sad that it's like that, but I kind of get it at the same time. Yeah, I kind of decided to jump into Dork Boy because, like, when I consume entertainment, if I play an amazing video game or watch a movie or show I really like, personally, I don't really give a shit how it was made. And sometimes it's just noise that gets in the way of my enjoyment if the people are really like talking all about how it was made all the time. I'm more interested in hearing about like the inspiration for example, a video game I really liked, than actually having some technical babble about stuff that I don't even understand or really care about all that much. You know what I mean? So that's why I thought, like, fuck it if it's AI video. In a couple of years' time, no one will be able to tell the difference anymore. Then it will be so good that everyone is doing it. And then it's all about the story. Then people don't give a shit. And then, worst case scenario, I'll redo these first episodes when we get there. That's essentially what I've thought. Yeah, and I guess a problem right now is the fact that it's not videos now, it's videos made with AI. And there's so many discussions about what's real art now. And I personally think if it comes from a personal place, then it's art. But I don't like the idea of stealing from anyone or people stealing from each other, which is why I design all my own characters myself. I draw them by hand and then have that turned into a 1980s puppet film style. And also all the realistic characters are based off of my face because I do not trust AI. I think AI can all of a sudden generate something that already exists because it's just a computer, essentially. It makes mistakes. And I also think that people connect with people through stories. They don't connect with computers through stories. So as long as the story itself is written by a proper human being who's gone through real experiences, then people are going to connect with it. Yeah. So moving forward, we'll do like a, I don't know, recap and talk about every 2 episodes moving forward. So we'll have this thing that goes along with every release of those 2 episodes, where I'll kind of talk a little bit about the inspiration behind it, or the thoughts that went into creating those 2 episodes, and some of the background stuff as well. But I will be making proper tutorials on how I've done different things when making these videos as well. So that will always also be coming. Yeah, so I hope you all folks are doing well, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.